Hello everybody, so I know it's been a while since I made one of these videos, but everybody knows there's been quite a bit of stuff going on recently. They've followed the live streams, the couple of live streams that I've been doing. Some of them I've had to take down for various reasons, but obviously there's more information that we've got about what Lorne was up to in the past and whatnot, some of which is quite disturbing, really. However, I know, like, as far as popularity goes, people are more interested in new content. I want more stuff and all that. It's just the way it goes. People are always hungry for more. This kind of little series is just kind of like something that I think is important, because it's like, what can we get out of it? We get, from the Lorne saga, we get many things: amusement, entertainment, bit of drama, schadenfreude, for our sins, a little bit of sort of projection of guilt and somewhere to throw our rage. But we can learn a lot, and it might not seem, because, like, I don't want to patronise anybody and say, please remember, don't try and fuck any kids. But maybe I should put that as a disclaimer at the beginning of the video. But that's what I mean. It's just so funny, isn't it? I mean, it got a bit heavy, the last live stream that we were doing, because of the new revelations with regard to, we know that there was a real person involved, many years ago. It can get dark. It can get upsetting. I know a lot of people, even that are involved in speaking to him, it's not a play. It's upsetting, isn't it? There's a real. We were all able to laugh at this guy because all he tried to do was have a good, to try and get with this imaginary girl. So it gave us all license to revel in his demise. Anyway, I don't want to go on about that. But the point is here, these life Lornography lesson videos that I've been doing, there's one main lesson that we can all learn. Well, it isn't something we already know it, most people. But it's his. If you think, what is his biggest downfall? We all know what it is, don't we? And it's taking responsibility for everything. And he takes responsibility for nothing. It's probably the one key element that creates the Lorne community, if you will. It's a bizarre thing to say, but I suppose there's a Chris Chan community, and I suppose there's little crazy communities dotted around the internet, isn't there? But it is a strange thing if you think about it. There's a group of us people that are fucking fascinated with a sex offender. I mean, what's all that about? But the main reason being is that he can't take responsibility. Now, the interview that you can see here now, there's some cracking moments in it. I never meant to do it. I mean, that's fantastic. That line, I never even meant to do it, just summarises his whole kind of being, really. It's like, I never meant to do it. It shows that there's so much contained within that statement. It's very childlike in the way it's spoken. Like, if you think, I never even meant to do it. I never. So he's like putting in a finite, an infinite thing on there. Never meant to do it. Never even meant to do it. If you think about that, it's like if you think about how childlike that is, it's like a child who's at the breakfast table and he's spilt milk, and he's knocked the milk over with his elbow, and his mother is giving him a nasty look, and he goes, I never meant to do it. That's the sort of response that you've got from somebody who's been arrested for a very serious offence for trying to have sexual contact with a child. And that's the response that you get from something which is not which is far from childlike in its scope of what he's tried to do. It's a strange thing if you think about it. Like, he's very childlike. He's immature in a number of ways, which would go partly to explain these inclinations that he's got towards children. There is that aspect of it, in that he can't relate to anybody his own age because people his own age are more mature than him. He's not mature. He's never grown up since like the ages of 12. He's able to relate more to people of that age because nobody who is his age would have nothing to wouldn't be able to form a relationship with somebody like that. Decent people, anyway. We know the only people that are hanging about with him now are ones that are just after his money. So it's the key element for the community existing is his lack of responsibility. If you take the interview, I know he kind of like is crying. It's a ridiculously immature way of it's like it's a defense mechanism for him trying to invoke sympathy on people. It's exactly what a child would do. You think back to when you were at school, you really like young school. I remember one moment where I was like involved in a scuffle. And I don't know why this stuck in my mind. I was like 5 or 6 or something. I remember it. And the guy he was like a friend of mine, the guy that was involved in a scuffle with me, he kind of started it, and the teacher called him out in class. And I remember looking over at him as his name got mentioned, and he burst into tears in the middle of the class. And it's like a defense mechanism, isn't it? The barriers go up, because you used to, as a child, you're used to crying. You learn at a young age that when you cry, you get protected from your parents if you've been brought up correctly. Your parents will come and protect you. It happens there. The animal kingdom, when young animals cry and the mothers come, it's a call for help, and that's the same with him, isn't it? He does it now in the calls. Things are difficult, and he gets emotional, or he gets backed into a corner where he's got nowhere to go. The tears will start. It's incredibly childlike, and it's him. It's just another aspect of not taking responsibility. It's like he's done something wrong and he knows it. So rather than look at it like an adult and a mature person would do and go, right, okay, I fucked up, what am I going to do about it? Well, first of all, I'm going to take responsibility. I'm going to admit that what I've done is wrong. I'm going to say, right, you know what? Yeah, I'm a fuckwit. I apologise, and I'm going to try and I'm not going to try. I am going to sort it out. And then you take steps. You be proactive about your issues. That's the last thing. He's got such a low level of maturity. That's the last thing. It doesn't even enter it's not in his reality. It's not in Lorne Armstrong reality to do that. It just isn't. And if you look at the interview, that's enough for us to realise this guy, he just, he's crying, I never meant to do it, so stupid to do that, all that. There's a little glimmer of kind of, he's like, Mr. Armstrong, did you said something sexual, is that true? And he's like, yes. There's a couple of yeses, but when it really gets to it, when it really gets to the nitty-gritty of what he did, I'd like an attorney. All right, then. And there you go. He's not taking responsibility. And what I will say is I don't personally blame him for that. Very few people are going to voluntarily give up the freedom, like I've said. It's just not going to happen. There's very few predators that get caught that completely hold their hands up, and, it happens. And they should, at the end of the day, they're not going to do it, are they? But you got the interview on its own, but also the next kind of thing that happened within the saga was the lawsuits. And, I mean, what? You just look at my videos, you know, I'll check them out for yourself. If anybody wants to contact me, I can send you the documents. It's not a problem. They're a bit of a heavy read, but man, you know, if you ever want to laugh, just look back at my old videos where I'm just taking the piss out of his lawsuits. It's fantastic entertainment, but the complete drivel that this guy comes out with is beyond anything that you could possibly imagine. It is the reason why, for me, the fascination really is with this guy is how can a human being be as deluded as him? He's not insane, per se. All human beings are insane that are ran by the ego, because the ego is insane. However, the human race... Listen, let's look at the human race as a whole at the minute. With all the... You've got one of the most powerful men in the world. I don't want to get into political stuff, but you got one of the most powerful men in the world arguing on Twitter with other world leaders in a tit-for-tat playground bullshit. It absolutely defies any kind of logic that you would... It's just remarkable. And the stuff he comes out with, it's like it was written by a comedian. You're talking like... I saw one where he was having a go at some British politician, and he might have been right. I think the guy he was having a pop-up was a bit of a tit. But he was going on saying, oh, I've heard from somebody else that he's a joke. I'm like, so hang on a minute. A world leader is babbling on about hearsay evidence on a tweet. And it's just bizarre. Absolutely bizarre. Yeah, so I can't believe I've gone into going on about that guy. But if you kind of like look at the world as it is, as a human race, the world is a manifestation of the human mind, the human ego. The world is... The developed world is the inner human psyche. It's a manifestation. You've got to look at what's going on in the world today and say we're pretty screwed up, really. There are some wonderful things. We have come a long way. There's a lot to be grateful for. If you think about, you know, there's a hell of a lot to be grateful for. It's something I'll probably talk about in another video. Actually, just give me an idea. But is it you know, we're a race that just wipes out each other for no reason whatsoever. You know, we poison our bodies every day. We eat unhealthy foods. It absolutely baffles me the stuff that people do to themselves, let alone everybody else. You know, it's remarkable. But if you look at it, you know, obviously from a world point of view, but from an individual point of view, and Lorne's kind of situation, he's not insane per se. He's part of the human collective, which is insane. But if you're going to talk about specifically insane people, I would say that someone who cannot at all function in society one little bit, who's sat in a corner muttering to himself and thinks he's got a leprechaun on his shoulder, that's what I would define. But this is a perspective. There's no ultimate truth here. My version of insane is different than others. It's just a fucking word, you know. Don't get caught up on it. What I'm trying to do is give a bit of perspective on Lorne's kind of, you know, because we've speculated for years that he's just insane. And like I said, there is a little bit of truth in that. I would say I'm insane to a certain degree. Because, you know, I do some fucking stuff that you wouldn't believe, but luckily I've never tried to go out and do what he's done. But, you know, some of the mistakes that I make, I'm like, have I just really done that? What the fuck? Anyway, but if you look at, what I'm trying to say is, if you look at the lawsuits and how just crazy they are, you would think that someone is insane, is completely insane, has written it. Like I said, from a perspective, yes, but on the whole, he's someone who is able to function at a low level in society. He's able to hold down a job to a degree, not hold it down for, you know, he can form relationships, not very good ones. He can pay his bills to a degree. He can function barely in society. He needs a team of specialists around him. So he's not exactly operating at peak efficiency. But, he's able to just about survive. Unfortunately, he's got this team of, probation and counsellors and therapists. But the lawsuits are happened, I believe he wrote them in prison. And there is not one shred of responsibility that he takes in the whole of those lawsuits. Every aspect of responsibility that you think one person would have to take, he doesn't. Everything. So basically, he says that he told the decoy no, that never happened. He said that it was the decoy that mentioned sexual topics. That never happened. He said that he was bullied, he was coerced, it was perverted justice who stitched him up, it was NBC who acted inappropriately. Every single entity that is involved in the sting, every single element, right, from, let's try and look at it. I'll probably miss some out here, but let's just say right from the beginning, from when he first went into the computer room, you've got perverted justice, haven't you? So they're the ones that made contact. So he blames perverted justice. The next people involved are the cops. Well, no, NBC, because Chris Hansen walked in. So you've got perverted justice, NBC, the cops. He has a go at the cops for incorrect searches. Then you've got the jail. Inside that, he has a go at them and said he was being, he's treated poorly and needs to be separated, blah, 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 blah. He has a go at the courts because he says his sentence shouldn't have been what it is. He has a go at his defence and says that his solicitor, his defence team didn't explore this, that and the other. They didn't do a good job. He tries suing them and bringing them up, and he doesn't sue them individually, but he tries bringing them up in the lawsuit. The prosecution for for having to go at 5 years. I mean, I suppose that could say part of the courts, but not necessarily. Who else have you got? His family. That wasn't mentioned in the lawsuit, but he does blame them at some point. He has a go at his friends. He mentions his friends in the chat log and says he was abandoned. So I think there's probably some that are missing there. Perverted justice, NBC, the cops, the jail, the courts, his defence, the prosecution, his family, his friends. Basically everybody that had a hand in getting him there. The only person that he doesn't say is responsible for anything is himself, when the only person that is responsible is himself. There's no grey area there. The fact that, let's just say, perverted justice were the most corrupt entity that has ever existed, it would be totally irrelevant. Totally irrelevant. He turned up to try and rape a child. This is serious shit. In his lawsuit, he says, in his own words, and I mentioned this when I go over the lawsuit, he said that the crime is not so bad. I can't remember who worded it exactly. Go back to I'll try and put something in the comment section of which video it is, but he writes that in his own words, that the crime of attempting to groom a kid is not so bad. So in other words, okay, I'm writing this because I'm in prison for doing this, but it's not a bad crime anyway. And I never meant to do it, and it wasn't my fault. It was perfect justice. It was NBC's. It was the courts. It was the jail. It was the defence. It was the prosecution. It was my family. It was my friends. Every single person, not only involved in the prosecution of getting him there, it's also the fault of everybody else in his life. The only person he really doesn't blame is his mum. He has a go at his father for abandoning him. He has a go at Bunky. He has a go at his siblings. He has a go at his friends who weren't supportive enough, every single person. And he's still stuck in the situation now. It's quite clear from the new calls, regardless of the amazing job that Tiffany does in trying to tell him what the crack is, he has not learned a single thing. Like I said, I don't believe it's necessarily the right thing to do. That's something for another time, and we will have, we all have our own perspectives. But one thing that we have learned is that he hasn't learned, and it's frustrating. When I was listening to the calls, which I probably shouldn't, I wanted to punch him. There's part of me that isn't perfect, as you know. I'm a human being with my flaws, and part of them flaws is I get angry, and I got angry when I heard him getting defensive and stuff. I never wanted to go there. That was the most interesting part of the lawsuit for me, and it's also the most amusing, is how he said he unintentionally travelled to the Sting House. Now, there's one thing that he can't deny. That no matter how much bullshit he comes up with, no matter how much he blames somebody else, he cannot deny that he walked into that house. He cannot deny that he got into his truck. He cannot deny that he asked her for a kiss, although he lied about it originally. So, what does he say in his lawsuit? That he unintentionally travelled there. Now, that had me in stitches when I first read it, because it's fucking hilarious. But have a think about that. It's the one thing that he can't deny. And what does he say? He unintentionally travelled there. That has no meaning. How can you unintentionally travel somewhere? You can't. It's an impossibility. Well, no, it isn't. You can unintentionally travel somewhere if you get kidnapped, or by some stroke of miracle, you stumble upon a wormhole, and that's unintentional travel. But let's just say let's just say that he's right, and it was, I'll divulge a little bit and we'll have a bit of fun, right? Let's just say he did unintentionally travel there in his truck. So what are the possibilities? That he got lost, that he just happened to stumble across that house, and he was like, oh, fucking hell, I've just so happened to end up at this house that I've been talking to this girl about for a month. I unintentionally got here. It's a complete coincidence that I got into that address. What are the odds? It's not totally impossible, but I would estimate them odds at approximately 8 billion to 1. Of just happening to stumble across that house at the exact time that he said he was going to be there. It could be that he's got his car became sentient and drove him there. It could be that that he had some kind of bizarre spasm, and that spasm lasted 3 hours, or however long it took him to drive there, and that spasm meant that every muscle contraction contributed to his driving, so he happened to have muscle spasms that made him change gear and turn at exactly the right moments, at exactly the right time to get him there at that time, and he didn't do it intentionally. I would say the odds of that are even greater than the 8 billion. In fact, that I would say it's an infinite to 1 chance. I worked that one out. So it's the reason I thought I'd expand upon that is because it's just a way of him avoiding a shred of there's not one I'd like to see one shred of responsibility in that lawsuit, and there isn't any, not one. And it's the one thing that is his main downfall. I mean, there's many things that are responsible, but it's the number one factor. It's the number one thing that make conscious people. It's one of the hallmarks of a conscious person. People who are conscious, they don't blame, they don't ignore, they don't deny, they don't project, and they don't divide. You become proactive about your life, and you take responsibility for everything. Everything. And I mean everything. Even something that you wouldn't think that you should take responsibility for. Let's just say that you're watching TV or whatever, or you see an animal in a slaughterhouse being butchered senselessly, and you are appalled at the notion of that happening, and you cry, and then the day after you're eating bacon sandwich. You've got no fucking right at all to feel sorry for that animal. If you have, don't fucking eat meat. So I meet many, and I don't judge those people because I've been one of them. And nobody wants to see someone and an animal suffer, right? I don't want to get into the debate of rights and wrongs of killing animals. For what it's worth, I don't think it's specifically wrong to eat an animal. I have certain, like I said, I don't want to go into that, but this is just a responsibility. If you are appalled at it, do not eat another fucking animal ever. Go on a vegetarian and vegan diet. Take responsibility for your beliefs, for your integrity. Don't become a gobby idiot who stands there in a bar babbling on about what's right and wrong and politics and that. It's like, this guy, I'll never forget this. This guy really fucking wound me up. When I used to drink a few years ago, it's one of the reasons I stopped drinking is because life is too short and I'm too... Self-improvement is too important to me now to waste it listening to idiots. And generally speaking, I mean, I still have a drink when I'm on holiday. I'm going on holiday on a mega holiday in January. I'll have a drink then because I'm there for a good time. But generally, I won't drink anymore. I don't drink on my own because there's no point. And most of the people that you meet in bars are morons. And as I said, most. In England, anyway. In Spain, different places like that. It's a bit different because the culture's different. But we've got a heavy drinking culture in England. And 90% of the people that you meet in bars are morons. And I've got far better things to do than waste my time engaging in mindless prattle. And... there was a guy, it was in my friend's bar, which I used to go to, and there's some guy I'd never met before, and I could tell he was a bit, I just got this feeling that it was like angry, whether it was something I saw or something I heard. I kind of moved away from him. Then he started complaining about, it was the local government, it wasn't like, you know, it was like the local area and politicians and this, that, and the other. And he was like annoyed. He was like angry, and I was there for a bit of fun. I wasn't there to debate it. And he was going, and it got to the point. I thought, right, I'll humour him. I don't want to start trouble because there's a lot. You know, where I live, there's a lot of aggressive people, and you've really got to, you know, you've got to be very. You've got to watch yourself. It's pretty dangerous. So I was like, but it got to the point where he was ruining my night. And I was like, I said, listen, I said, you're right, and you might be right, mate, but now's not the time for this. Anyway, he said, well, yeah, you're not passionate about it. I said, mate, I've come out for some fun. I haven't come out to get involved in a political discussion. I said, what are you doing about what you're complaining about? I can't remember how I worded it exactly. I said, what are you doing about it? He said, what do you mean? I said, well, listen, whinging about it in a bar on a Friday night is one thing. What are you going to do about it? Either do something about it or just shut up. And he actually did. I thought, because I lost my shit with him, I thought there's going to be a fight here. But I kind of said it in a way. I wasn't like as aggressive as what I'm saying it now, but I said it in such a way where he didn't really have anywhere to go. The only way that he could have responded was with aggression, because I said it in a way that made total sense. Some people would have started a fight with me at that point because I'd basically shot him down. But it was like, listen, I can't remember exactly what he was going on about, and some of it was I remember thinking he's got a point. But the thing is, do something about it. Don't whinge. Take responsibility. Become a politician. Start a group online on Facebook and start a petition. Start dropping leaflets. Don't fucking stand there in a bar on a Friday night fucking whinging about something you're not going to do anything about. That's not taking responsibility. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody has to become a political activist. There's too much of that going on online now. Everybody, getting quite irate about it now, aren't I? But it pisses me off. Everybody has to have an opinion about everything. politics, I do a job, this is the way I look at it, and I'm not saying it's the right. I do a job which I'd like to think does quite a bit of good. So that's my contribution. I give money to charity and I help people when I can. The main person in my life is me. If I'm not content, I can't help anybody. So I'm the most important person in my life. Well, I said that I would give my life for certain people. There's no doubt about that. But I've got to look after myself. I live on my own currently. I look after myself very fucking well. I could probably do it a bit better, but I take responsibility for my life. I eat not entirely. Once every fortnight I have a Domino's because they're fucking great. But generally I eat nothing but healthy organic foods. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I intensely exercise every single day. I meditate. I read spiritual texts. I don't watch shite. I don't hang around with idiots. This, ironically, I have an internal battle whether this is the right thing to do. But I know some people get something out of it, and it from a selfish perspective, it's good to get stuff off my chest. So there are things that I could take more responsibility for. There are things about me that I know I need to improve. I'm too short-tempered. I get angry too easily. I judge people too easily. I am too quick to make snap judgments about situations and about people. I've got quite a lot of other faults, but I can't think of them at the minute. Those are things I work on every day. I am aware of what my ego is, and I'm always able to double back on myself when it pops up. So even though I do come out with egotistical comments, I can immediately recognise them and I learn from it, and I don't blame myself for doing it. I am in a constant search, which is a bit wrong really, because if you search you won't find it because it's already here. But I'm in a constant... I don't like the word spiritual because it conjures up a lot of bullshit. I like the term actualised. I'm trying to actualise, which means I'm trying to be the best possible version I can be of me. Now, I think there are times that I take it a little bit too far, maybe, but I also know how to have fun. So, I've got the holidays planned, and I'm probably going to go to Spain for a week soon. So I have a good balance. I don't think you should be too serious. I can still look at the Lorne Armstrong interview and piss me sides. So taking responsibility is key to my life. Everything that, even things like, a big one is relationships. Something that Lorne struggled with, as we know, not just relationships romantically, but with his siblings, with his mum, with everybody. Everybody he's ever encountered, there's been issues. But obviously, that could be said about all of us. Even we all lose it, don't we? We're not enlightened masters. We're at a certain stage of where we are as human beings. And it's a journey, and it's a struggle, and it's painful, and that's the point of it. Otherwise, if we were here on this planet and everything worked out exactly how it was, you would think that you wanted it to, and everything was great, and you sat there on a beach, and your dream partner was bringing you grapes, and it'd just be silly. Just think about that. Ponder on that. It's not going to happen. We're here to go through the shit. But we're also here to enjoy every moment if we can and appreciate it. It takes a lot of hard work. Life is ridiculously difficult. When you realise it's ridiculously difficult, it's not ridiculously difficult anymore. That's the paradox of the whole thing. Taking responsibility is... Also, it's an external thing. So, like I said, one of the big things is relationships with people. You would... The thing that set me off on this path of actualising is a breakup of a relationship. It wasn't just a normal it hit me pretty hard. Really hard. You know, it was, I think I mentioned it before, it wasn't just, you know, we all have breakups. It was involving children. It got very messy. I was in a very, very dark place. And doing all this stuff was the only way out of it. I could sit there and blame that person because they made mistakes. I made mistakes. They did some things that if I was to tell people, they'd be horrified. But I'm pretty sure I did some bad things. I can't blame that person. They're on their path. It's irrelevant what they did to me. I allowed that to happen. I got into a relationship with that person. I got involved in all that. I have to take responsibility for it. It doesn't mean that I judge myself. It doesn't mean that I condemn myself. It means that it was me that made those decisions. You recognise that at the time you couldn't have made any other decision because you didn't know how. You didn't have the ability to. You couldn't. So you forgive yourself, but you take responsibility and you say it was me that did that. I didn't know any better. Move on. You bless the other person, and that's it. What does this guy do? What? Not one shred of responsibility. There's a really deeper reason why he doesn't do it. He's still a baby. Little baby Lorne never grew up, and that little kid that's inside him has never got out of there. And this external ego that's wrapped around it is trying to protect it. And it's why he can't take responsibilities. He can't let that little kid out to open up and say, it was me. He can't do it. And it's there for many reasons, is that we'll go into it another time. It's like, you know, he's sort of growing up. He was the youngest. He got bullied a little bit, blah, 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 blah. His mother overprotected him. His bunkie took his toy. His dad left him. Many, many things that have contributed to his chaotic situation. Many, many things. So, and there's another aspect which we'll go into another time maybe, is that I don't hate Lorne. It's easy to. It's harder not to. And harder things are always the more worthwhile. Love your enemy, which means have none. If you truly understand the human condition, if you understood why a person did what they did, hatred would be impossible. Hatred is just an excuse for a lack of wisdom. But I certainly don't blame anybody that does hate this guy, especially somebody who has been a victim of sexual abuse. I don't want to come across that, oh, well, you know, this, that, and the other, you shouldn't do. Because what I have been lucky enough that I've never been a victim. I don't know anybody close to me that's ever opened up about that. But I know enough to know from my professional vocation that it destroys people's lives. And people that would feel those emotions towards him are understandable. But even some of those people, if you listen to people that have come out the other side, they'll tell you the importance of forgiveness. Because if you don't, it clings to you. This negative emotion, it doesn't go anywhere. So it's kind of like if Lorne took responsibility. Let's just say Lorne took responsibility for what happened to him. Let's just say he was sat there, like you see him now on the screen in that chair. His eyes have just his head has just gone in his hands. What if he had a realisation at that point and went, oh shit, what have I done? How did I get into this mess? That's what life was trying to do to him. It was trying to tell him that what are you doing? What on earth are you doing with yourself? What have you done with your life? You sat in a room, you've just been busted, humiliated on TV. Sort yourself out. But he wouldn't. But let's just say he did. What would that look like? What would he do? He'd say, right, okay, I need to sort myself out. I need to stand up There's no getting out of this. I need to admit that what I've done is wrong. I need to... Have I got this attraction to children? I need to get that sorted. I need to either accept it, that it's not going to go away, and control it. I need to get therapy. I need to apologise to people. I need to pay Betty back. I need to get myself in shape. I need to... everything. You know, that would be... That's counterintuitive to him at that point. It's the hardest way. The easiest way, although he doesn't realise it. Ironically, the hardest way is the easiest way. He doesn't know that. He hasn't got enough wisdom. He doesn't know that the path he's chosen is the harder one. In the short term, it's easier. People don't think long term. He thinks short term, easier, cry. Blame it on somebody else. It's the kid. It's the kid. But he doesn't have the brains. He doesn't have the wisdom. He doesn't have enough about him to say, the only way I can be the best person I can be is take responsibility for everything and be a better person. And at no point did he do that. Not one point. Everything that happened was everybody else's fault. Every single person that was involved in it, it was them. It wasn't me. I was victimised. I was bullied. My defence let me down. The prosecution let me down. The legal system let me down. NBC vengeful. They are. I wish I could get my boxing gloves on. It's women's. There's another one on the blame list. Women, female powers. I mean, what? Every single thing. But the path he's chosen has meant that here we are, 12 years later, and he's getting catfished repeatedly online again. You couldn't write this shit. Completely oblivious to everything that's going on because he won't take responsibility. Responsibility is an inner thing. If you get the inside right, the outside will fall into place. So, take responsibility. This is where a lot of people's downfall is these days. As mental health is becoming more... It's becoming more talked about, which is good, but there's a problem with all this. I've got anxiety. It's part of the human condition, and once you label it and slap a badge on it, it kind of gives you an excuse to feel like different, and that there's something wrong with you, and that it needs to be treated. And you go to your doctor, I've got anxiety, give me some pills. That's not going to fucking help anybody. You know, you need to take responsibility for how you're feeling. You have the ability to... You have a decision to make. You either deal with things negatively or you deal with things positively. You either behave... You can either love people or you can hate them. It's decisions. It can be more complicated than that. You would need a certain... You can get so wrapped up in the bullshit that your mind creates that can be a million miles away. But there's one thing that I know, is that if you want to get better and you are serious about it and you take responsibility, the right help will come to you at the right time. There will always be... life will always give you the opportunities for the evolution of your consciousness. There are extreme examples of which one could never explain. You know, there's things that go on that are beyond our realm of understanding, of course. But anyway, I could probably go on about this for another hour, for another 45 minutes, but I don't like to keep the videos much longer than this. So I might do like a part 2. Please, and just... I was reading a book and I never heard it put like this. Responsibility, if you think about what that means, response, ability. So you've got a response to something and then your ability to respond to it. That's what responsibility means, response, ability. But he doesn't get that, does he? And it's something that, you know, it's all, you know, successful people, happy people take responsibility for everything. It's the one key lesson that we can learn from his plight. Anyway, I'm going to end it there. Could you please let me know if you've enjoyed the video, and I'll speak to you soon.